Hi, everyone.
Another time. Another time.
Hi.
Hello.
Thanks so much thanks so much for coming this evening for the talk with Rehab Nazzal and Jayce Salloum, two incredible artists that I'm very honored to be part of the organization of this event. Even though I'm the curator, the team in Vancouver is absolutely extraordinary. I mean, Rehab called me like a few weeks ago going, I cannot believe what is going on right now in Vancouver. I mean, you're really showing it up like I work at Saw Gallery, a very politically and socially engaged space, but I've never seen this type of activism happen in the community. So we'll get straight into a discussion. I know a lot of us here are concerned about what's happening in Gaza, but also what's happening in West Bank. You both have just recently come back from West Bank, and I think it's important for us to hear what's happening on the ground right now. Not your impressions, but you've seen how it's degraded in West Bank, and Jayce has also documented so much in the time he was there, and we're seeing part of his research and artistic work. I'm wondering if you guys can give us a bit of sense of what's going on the ground right now.
You go ahead.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. I am really honored to meet so many people here who I've met online. I say the bust, the upper part, and now in person. I hugged so many people over the past 2 years, have been involved in the activism, in the support of Palestine in such very dark time, very dark. I really don't know where to start, but Gaza and the genocide in Gaza, the engineered famine, starvation in Gaza, that's the first concern for me, and I assume for everyone. The complicity of Western states, including this state sending weapons or sending a few aid boxes that being dropped on civilians that killed so far 23, instead of forcing the state of Israel to open the borders, to open the gates of the concentration camp of Gaza. Bombing, starvation, and the world is watching. And I wouldn't say the public, because if this genocide revealed something, it revealed that divide between white and non-white, between North and South, between colonized people and colonizing power, between the very few rich who are making fortunes by creating weapons and by killing, extracting. My dear Cis spoke about this, and you're all aware. That is the outrage. Another layer of the outrage is the media, the Western media complicity. It is complicit in the genocide because it's not just suppressing or ignoring or doesn't report, but repeating the Zionist propaganda to a degree that justifies the genocide. This is the Western media, including the Canadian media. So what's happening in Gaza? Yes, unprecedented. And it is a Holocaust, but a 21st century Holocaust, where the killing tools have never been as powerful, as destructive as now. All our effort, all our energy, I suppose, should focus on this major issue: breaking the silence, opening the gates, pressuring states, pressuring governments, and exposing the media as well, politicians. And I know many people here who actually hijack politicians in their offices, in the streets, in their homes, expose them, because the new reports about Canadian government, I mean, it still ships weapons to Israel. So it's not only complicit, but also lies to the Canadian public by saying we don't. The other aspect that we are going to focus on is the West Bank. The day before yesterday, the CBC News came to this gallery to interview me about this project. And I put in context the whole work, right? Starting with the genocide in Gaza, then the work here, which I will talk briefly about. 45 minutes interview, they cut everything relevant, and they put a few sentences in a 6-minute footage that showed it. We ignored it, of course, entirely, and we will complain. I am not expecting anything from them. What I focused about is the West Bank. Palestine, and I said that yesterday, the other day, 27 square kilometers, that's Palestine.
27,000.
27,000, what did I say?
27.
27,000. I have tendency to forget this. 27,000 square kilometers. The West Bank is 8,000 square kilometers. Gaza, 365. The 8,000 square kilometers, where all this project in here, which spent 10 years to create, it's not continuous work, but from 2010 to 2020, all the video and sound and photography, all in the West Bank. In the West Bank itself, until 2020, there were 250 Jewish-only illegal colonies in the West Bank. Now, within the past 2 years, now they're exceeding 320. They have, in the current government, they have a fascist minister. He is stealing land, torturing the communities, burning trees, attacking even animals. It's horrific. So what is happening in the West Bank? Absolutely no attention of any media or international, well, there are international human rights organizations, that's right. But talking about the West Bank, 60,000 Palestinians were forcibly expelled from their homes from northern West Bank, which is my hometown, Jenin, Tulkarem, and 19 Bedouin communities. Maybe some of you watched the film, No Other Land. It's a Bedouin community in the south, So they are targeting now these communities and forcibly expelling them from their homes. Not only that, the refugee camps of Jenin, Tulkarem, Nur Shams were entirely destroyed after forcibly the residents were expelled. These refugees are the refugees from 1948, when Israel was established over their homes and lands, and they slept, some of them, in their warm beds. We're not talking about empty land. Haifa, Yafa, Akka, in Jerusalem, neighborhoods, my children's hometown, Tabariyas, entirely was ethnically cleansed and inhabited by settlers who came from Europe mainly, white settlers from Ukraine, Russia, Germany. It has nothing to do with the Holocaust. It has nothing to do with the suffering and the struggle of the Jewish people. It's a settler colonial project that wants the Palestinian land and get rid of every Palestinian. It started 77 years and it's continuing. Glimpses what you're seeing here of checkpoints that now reach 900 checkpoints within this 800 square kilometer, which makes moving from A to B a struggle and intended also to fragment the Palestinian society, cutting ties between communities. The Israeli apartheid wall that stole part of the West Bank and part of the land, and also fractured the Palestinian community, cut the people from their land, from their schools. That's another manifestation. It's expanding even now, the past 2 years. The apartheid wall, the colonies, the checkpoints, the watchtowers. The watchtowers you've seen here, 87 of them, these are within the Palestinian communities. They're not at borders. Once I was in a class confronted by a student, Israeli student, saying this to protect Israel from Hamas. This is 3 years ago. But they are in the Palestinian community at the entrance of the villages, of cities, and the apartheid wall. So the whole project, before I give the mic to my dear friend,
Keep talking, it's fine.
the whole project exposes the infrastructure, surveillance infrastructure, restriction of movement of the Palestinians, which made what's happening now possible. All this accumulation over 77 years, what led to the genocide and the ethnic cleansing going on in Gaza and the West Bank, and the suppression of the Palestinians in 48 borders. The other part that Israel established its state on, we call it the 48 borders. There are 2 million Palestinians live there. They're being silenced, suppressed. 56 laws that discriminate against them, where to put their children, in which school, which daycare, ownership of land, even marriage, love, they interfere, these laws with. That's the 2 million. The 4 million in the West Bank, suffering, struggling. I mean, I would let Jayce, because Jayce came to the West Bank where I teach in Bethlehem, but my family in Jenin. So I go back and forth and I visit other communities. And Jayce witnessed the destruction. I've never seen such hate. Never, ever in my life, even before. During the 67, I was a child, never seen that hate. You open your mouth, you can be shot. You look at the soldier, they will look at you. Why you're looking at the IDF? So the roads, the homes, the cultural structures. We have engineered sculpture of the watermelon. It's called the watermelon sculpture. It's a landmark. The first one they bulldozed. Then we have another one, the horse. If you've been engineering the horse, which made of ambulances that Israel destroyed and bombed in 2002 when they attacked Jenin. So they created a beautiful sculpture, a reminder of the massacre of Jenin. The Israelis not just destroyed it, the bulldozer, they stole it. They brought bulldozer and they took it with them. Every cultural site, every photograph of a martyr or photo box of a prisoner, all destruction. It's a war invisible going on now of ethnic cleansing, of land theft, and destruction of life. It's like the intention is to drive Palestinians out of their home, making life impossible for them so they can leave. That is the final intention of them, but we are resilient.
So I went to Palestine in the middle of May. Rehab was one of my hosts, and I tried to get to Gaza, but the day that I was going, the bombs were falling from Yemenis in 48, and the settlers were getting more violent than usual. And the settlements along the border of Gaza, northern Gaza, are very very violent settlers that live there. They actually have picnic sites set up on the hilltops so they can watch the genocide, partake, and have picnics. And there's vending machines there. They can have cold drinks, and there's telescopes, like for looking at the Statue of Liberty, you put a quarter in. So it shows you how obscene the Zionism and the fascism is, and the settlers epitomize that. So the settlers were very getting even more violent because there was some shells falling within 48. So I wasn't able to go. So there was still plenty to focus on in the West Bank. In the 5 weeks that I was there, I did a lot of moving around with Rehab, trying to keep up with her. I was shooting with an iPhone, and she was shooting with a 10-pound camera. You might see her with one hand with the camera, one hand with a cigarette, a popsicle in her mouth, and driving with her knees, There is a picture, really, or a series of pictures coming up. This is Janine, yeah. I did my best to keep up. Okay, we're leaving at 5 o'clock in the morning. Okay, well, can we go at 6? If you know me, I'm not an early riser. But in the West Bank, it's a huge area, and the Israelis are trying to do everything they can on all levels, scholastically, economically, everything to make life miserable for Palestinians. There's 120, 200,000 unemployed that used to work within 48 that now have no income. They're scraping by, their families are struggling. A lot of them living in the refugee camps in the cities in the West Bank as well, the ones that haven't been bulldozed or emptied out, dispossessed. It's like the West Bank is the next point or current point of dispossession, where life is becoming so difficult that just to stay there and to keep sustenance and food on your table, like in Gaza, just to stay alive is an act of resistance. And in the West Bank, it's not as severe, of course, but still, just to support your family is samud, it's staying put. Yeah, they're trying to force you to flee, to go work overseas, to leave your homeland, and it's increasingly difficult, but people are very determined. And it was a very intense time there on all levels. People were very, very generous and made friends very easily and shared stories. I recorded about 25 hours of film, and I want to go back as soon as I can, as soon as the gates are open in Gaza, inshallah, in the near future. What can I tell you? That, yeah, every day was an amazing day of meeting people, hearing their stories of life under occupation. And it's this occupation nobody talks about when they mention Palestine in the media, right? They think that the occupation started in October 2023, and the atrocities were happening in the 20s, 1920s, and the 30s, leading all the way up. There was dispossession, there was destruction of villages, there was massacres of Palestinians, leading up to the establishment of the state. And that was the intention all along, was an intention of decimation and dispossession and extermination. So, yeah, so I'm just, these photos, which is part of the body work I collected there, is showing like Jenin, this is Jenin specifically, of the Israeli destruction outside of the refugee camp, which they dispossessed. How many people were in the camp? 2,000?
Oh no, 25,000.
25,000? Trying to just capture some of the intensity. I mean, it's really difficult to capture the wall. The wall is everywhere. The apartheid wall, it's not like the pictures, the panopticon that Rehab created in the other gallery. If you come alone and see the images without people in them, it's more severe than when it's full of people. But when you get up to these watchtowers, the walls surrounding your neighborhood or dividing your neighborhood or your house from your farmland that you can't get to get to your gardens or your olive trees anymore. It's really violent. It's a huge violence on your being. And even me as a visitor, I could feel that walking, right next to this wall, following the wall along. There's AI-operated cameras, guns and cameras, and most of the soldiers are now in Gaza, so they're operating them remotely, which is even worse. And AI that's brought to us by Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. So it's just whatever you get from these pictures and from the works, multiply it by 1,000, and that's the pain and the intensity and the obscenity of the occupation and the system of apartheid that has been created throughout the state of Palestine.
Thank you.
You don't have, we can keep talking. If you don't clap, we can talk more. Thank you. We appreciate it, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's true. I think what Jay said about multiplying what's in here hundreds of times, that's the situation in the West Bank. And I forgot at the beginning to thank the curator, Stefan St-Laurent, who is a friend, a dear friend, when 20 years ago, very few people would speak about Palestine or support Palestine or have the courage to face the Zionist lobby. Stefan is a friend of the Palestinians, the indigenous, all the really marginalized communities in the center of the capital, Ottawa. So he is the curator of Driving in Palestine, which was first exhibited in Montreal Art Intercultures in August 2023 for the genocide. But then it moved to Saw Center in Ottawa, then Campbell River, and here. So this work all old, really. I am only adding new photographs of Panopticon that, because they close some roads now, the Israelis, and you have to find really other roads to reach your destination. And I'm discovering new ones. One of them is outrageous, about 10-story high, that probably surveils great section of the West Bank. So, true, I mean, it's unprecedented, the violence in the West Bank, unprecedented the viciousness and criminality of the Jewish settlers who come from Canada, from the US, Manhattan, from Germany, from Russia, Ukraine. We have lots of Ukrainians on checkpoint, and they declare their identity. I met with a Canadian from Montreal, and I was photographing, and he put his hand, don't videotape, before the genocide. Now I can't do it, I'll be shot. And I asked him, why, where are you from? He said, from Montreal. But what are you doing here? He said, well, I'm serving 6 months here, then I'll go with my girlfriend and live in Tel Aviv. I said, are you listening to yourself, what you're doing to the children in here? He said, well, it's a 3,000 years old war. So that's the brainwash. 3,000 years old war. You from Montreal in here torturing the Palestinian children. My daughter was arrested, and the judge in her case, it was a human rights organization that had the lawyer for her, the judge from Montreal. He told her, before we both are Canadians, I am going to let you go. Instead, spending longer time in prison would be house arrest. So yes, those are the vicious settlers who are now turning our life into hell, but not alone. They work together, the Israeli forces and them together. The uniform may be questioned by the army, but with civil clothes, settler, no one questioned them. They burn, they kill, they attack, they killed an American citizen, beat him to death 2 weeks ago.
I wanted to talk a little bit about how this show came together, and it was very strategic on our part to present works that were like so documentary based that we wouldn't have the normal pushback that we get when we work together and do other types of exhibitions. I mean, we work together as co-curators for Live in Palestine.
Exactly.
That was also very odd to open at the May, and the pandemic hit right after, and then we opened Driving in Palestine in Montreal, and I think it was early September, and then 1 month later it was quite the explosion. But yeah, we wanted to present an exhibition that would be very hard for the media to have a strong bias. And now we're in a situation where we have a genocide that's, you know, presented to us live. Is documentary even effective in, you know, I'm questioning so many things, even with your interview with CBC yesterday, and it's not your first interview that goes awry because of like manipulation and editing. I'm wondering what you think of documentary right now, and both of you adopt documentary approaches in both of your works. What does it mean like now?
I mean, probably you know me, I used to draw and paint and do printmaking and just lock myself in a studio with my children, happy with my work. Then when I visited Palestine, and I was denied for 25 years from going back home. So some settlers can replace me. But when I went and saw the changes that took place within 25 years, that's when I was convinced documentary for Palestinians, for any cause, in fact, so significant. Like, it's really more fiction, what's in Palestine, than fiction itself. So documentary, it is a vital, it's significant for representing reality as it is. And now, at the moment, if it wasn't for the cameras in the hands of the Palestinians in Gaza, no one would know there is a genocide. Because the Western media is not covering. There are no journalists. And Israel targets the journalists who work on the ground. 250 journalists, the highest number ever in any war, was killed. And their colleagues, supposedly, the other journalists, did not open their mouth. So the people became the journalists, reporters, artists with their cameras, connecting to the people of the world. I don't want to use the word citizen, really. The people, us, everywhere. So that proves like there is nothing more powerful. Even as an artist, and I teach art, and my students tell me, like with these images that we see, we can't create anything. We can't. How can we represent fractions of what's being even screened in our phones and our screens? So yes, aside from the rhetoric of documentary being an evidence, you can't deny a documentary, but you can deny a fictional work. It's out of your imagination, but you have it as an evidence, as a record, as an archive. For me, it's for next generations. I am archiving all the time, the land, the people, the trees, everything. It became a responsibility for me to do it. Everything I capture it for next generation as well. My friend.
Yeah, I've always resisted the term documentary, and with my films, one that got shown in different formats, people would look at it like most of my films. They would say, "This art or is this documentary?" And it would fall somewhere in between. So for me, it was always, my work's always been marginal, whether it's film festivals or a gallery or commercial gallery or nonprofits. And for me, the margins are, the most productive place to be, and you can create resistance from the margins more than you can in the center. So yeah, the films I called back in the 90s when I was making films about the representation of Palestine in 1990 with Introduction to the End of an Argument, it was called a reluctant documentary. So you try to purvey information on one level, but also you try to deconstruct the history of ethnography and anthropology and documentary in the way that it creates the subject, and and it becomes a consumable item, right? So if you do a critical documentary, I think it can be very, like the works here, it can be double-edged sword. It can offer a critique as well as be providing an impression or instances, moments of on the ground. Yeah. And it's amazing to see this many people out because, like in the 1989, 1990, we'd in New York, I was living there and showing films and shows, and you get heckled for showing anything about Palestine. The JDL and would send out people in the Khanes, and you'd have to get them dragged out to continue the screening. But this room full of, I'm going to start crying now. It's a great, the communion, the feel, the energy of the room and the generations. I mean, it's really inspiring and hopeful. So, thank you.
In teaching, I face some similar issues from my students. And I say, our education, including myself, I obtained 3 degrees from this country. Our education, our art history, photography history, our art practices photography practices, all was drafted for us by colonial states, settler colonial states. Europeans, barely 1/4 of the planet, of the 1/4 of the population of this planet. And we are asked to follow the standards. And that is exactly, so many universities, institutions talk about decolonization, right? It's not an empty word. We have to create our own practices, our own history. We have to question every standard that we learned. We have to unlearn, de-learn, and it's difficult to learn something new easier than de-learn something you got used to it. That's how you exhibit, that's how you read, that's how you write, poetic, and this is common. I smiled because probably in your age, I faced the same thing. I was asked not to do it like political, straightforward, because it's safer for these institutions. It's safe. They don't want you to engage. They don't want you to criticize. They don't want you, for example, to expose that the university I was granted a postdoc at recently, it's complicit, the university, complicit in the war crimes that are taking place now. They're receiving $80 million from a war criminal who is responsible for the expulsion of Palestinians in 1948 and stealing their land and their properties. So yes, we have to question even the art institutions, the academic institutions, academia itself. I say I'm so angry of artists and academics at this period of time, because I was one of the people who would write and speak loud about how could the world be silent when the Jewish people were exterminated. How the world allowed that to happen. And as academics and artists, it's so safe to create work and talk about the past. But to affect actually what's happening now, yeah, there is a price for it. You might not be hired, don't give a damn. You might not be exhibited in a mainstream institution, we don't give a damn, really, because we are doing work to change the reality, to change the injustice, to change the horrific distribution of wealth, militarization, destruction of the environment. I mean, they're all connected. All these issues are connected. And academia and art institutions are not doing anything. They're taking the safe side. Programming an exhibition like this takes 2 years to 5 years. They don't know something called urgency, something called to affect what's happening now at the moment. They don't know that.
No, but we've been trying to tour this exhibition, like, and it was shocking to see, like, we would have headway with a certain gallery and all of a sudden they would start ghosting us and not even replying back. I mean, we're going to New York City to present the exhibition at the People's Forum, but we contacted, I would say, a good 15 galleries and mainly artist-run centers, and we got ghosted by all of them. It was just shocking. You know, we had money to tour the exhibition.
Yeah.
So I was very disappointed with not just how the Canadian art world has reacted, but
and you know, in the West.
You were talking about systems of support and solidarity, right? Well, I think it's really important. And after October, in Palestine you say October, they know you're talking about October 23rd. You say 48, they know you're talking about Zionist entity. Just shortly after October, I got tired of raging at the radio and the podcast, CBC, BBC, everything on TV, and called together 3 other artists and cultural workers who were equally raging. And so we formed a collective, and now it's up to 14 people. It's from the river to the sea. We've done about 20 events. But just having that solidarity of the people working together, even the first time we got together at Mandana's house where she laid out a whole buffet for us 4 people, it was, you felt the solidarity. I think the way we affect change is through organizing, through solidarity, and then intersectionality, like joining groups together of like-minded people, and even ones that don't seem like they're like-minded, but share the fight against global struggle. When I was filming the head of the Palestine Biodiversity Museum, Natural History Museum, he says, don't call it solidarity, call it the struggle against global capitalism. I said, okay. So that's basically what Zionism is, hugely part of. It's a construct of that. So I think if you're feeling the urge, call people together, work together. There's groups already out there. I mean, Rita is a member of like 20 different groups and organizing, 30 hours a day. I don't know how she squeezes it all in. There's people in this room that are, amazing. And just one other thing. So one of our events, Sarah Shamish, who's part of our collective, and Rehab and myself, we videotaped a conversation about Canadian complicity in the arts. Canadian arts complicity in the genocide. So that conversation is online on YouTube or Vimeo. Vimeo. So you can search for it, and it's like half-hour conversation. Rehab goes into detail about her experiences.
Which I forgot entirely. I forgot.
Okay, you're interviewed every day. How can you remember?
I've been facing censorship, not censorship, violence by the Zionists in this country. I received death threats. The state of Israel attacked me. They allowed themselves as the ambassador of Israel, attacked me, attacked my exhibition. It's all wrong, sir. I want to say nothing stops me, because I believe that we are together can change the world. And if there is fear from those states, they fear the people. They fear the collective power. They do. And historically, it's not something new. And the organized work, I will add to Jayce, the organized work is always more effective. The collective work, more effective. Like I say it, and I say it to the media, 77 years, Israel spent trillions probably of dollars on creating a narrative and distributing this narrative. Now, with the Palestinian resistance and steadfastness the past 2 years, it is crumbling. It's being exposed. And it is by the collective effort and the solidarity from across the world. I mean, Britain never experienced such protests. France never. Germany even, with all the oppression. Australia, 100,000 people lost the brain. I mean, these are Western countries. The Arab countries take Yemen every single week. 1 million people march every week since October. Yeah. I mean, I am optimistic, always optimistic. And yes, I don't feel like we have to see the result today or tomorrow. We're people who work at the grassroots level. We build brick by brick. It's a slow process. The result takes time. They work on the top, and the top easy to crumble, because we are the foundation that actually make that upper echelon there in their place. Yeah, I mean, universities becoming corporation, profit-making corporation. UBC on the unceded, unsurrendered territories. If there is real education, they will turn back the land to its people. So many issues, really. What's called philanthropy, the rich giving millions and imposing conditions, what to be censored, what to be taught. So universities, it's so sad to really to sit here and talk about these institutions. So sad, but that's the truth. They're so far away from creating knowledge, critical minds, generations to change the world. No, profit making, unfortunately.
Well, luckily for us, they're crumbling, so we will be able to start our new universities.
Yeah.
Free universities.
Freedom School.
Freedom School is an example. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thanks so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. We're staying for a while. Please, let's chat outside, inside. Keep mobilizing. Let's make collaborations happen. I work at SAW. We're very open to working with Vines again. We're very honored that you took us in, because not many people were at this point, and you guys came in like, I don't know, like I've never seen this kind of mobilization in an artist-run center. I'm very, very touched by everything that's happened so far. Yeah.
I echo Jayce by thanking you so much, really. We also had last week an amazing exhibition at Center A. Center A, where is the amazing director here, Ginny. And there were 3 amazing young curators. Maybe the first time they curate a show, but they're brilliant, they're not here. They curated the show. We brought artwork from the West Bank by 23 emerging and established artists who are studying their MFA at my university. And they created work responding to the genocide and to our conditions. Amazing work. They rented a space because it's a large exhibition, but now they moved it to Center A, so it's really to share the work, but also to sell the work and support those students. Jayce spoke about the conditions in the West Bank, the unemployment over 50% now. And most of the artists have families. The students, they have families, have to support and fees to pay. So please, drop by Center A and you can buy either a small card or an actual photograph of a large painting. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Freedom School. Thank you, everyone who contributed to these 2 shows, to the activism, raised your voice to end the genocide, and all to connect our struggle as indigenous people here and in Palestine, and free Palestine. Thank you. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you.